Wayne's World, rising above the noise and confusion.
It's Wayne's Word.
Oh.
Welcome to Wayne's Word. Today we have with us a very special guest, Lieutenant General Robert D. Rod Bishop, Jr. He's retired from the Air Force as a distinguished 34-year veteran of the United States Air Force, renowned for his exemplary leadership in mobility operations, strategic planning, and international command roles. He's a 1974 graduate of the United States Air Force Academy with a BS in engineering management. He amassed over 4,000 flight hours as a command pilot in various aircraft, serving early in his career as an aircraft commander, instructor pilot, and flight examiner. You served in a number of conflicts, including Desert Storm, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
And what other highlights have I missed, General?
Well, while I was the wing commander at Charleston Air Force Base, I deployed 7 times as U.S. Transcom and Air Mobilities Command's Director of Mobility Forces, most having to do with contingencies in the Middle East and the air war over Serbia.
And today you are a proud member of what's known as STARS, and this is some retired military officers, and it stands for Stand Together Against Racism and Radicalism in the Services. We're going to talk today about some of what you are working on with STARS, and I'd like to begin with your recent effort to, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, to grant him an honorary degree from the United States Air Force Academy.
Let me first of all go back, and STARS is not just military officers. I mean, it's civilians, it's NCOs. In fact, one of our board of directors members is a former Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. But that effort and what we've done there is completely separate about what I did as a member of the Association of Graduates Board of Directors in bringing forth on behalf of tens of grads. I socialized it with tens of grads, some of whom are recent grads. So when I was socializing motions to honor Charlie Kirk, I always asked, what do you think the rest of your people in your unit would feel? So I was getting a better feel and consensus of how widely spread that these initiatives would be. So I ran along with 4 other like-minded people who wanted to see our Air Force Academy Association of Graduates become more transparent and foster a dialogue on critical issues of the day. One of the reasons why I ran was for 4 or 5 years, I had tried to get the Association of Graduates to step on up to the plate, so to speak, and have that discussion that a number of grads were concerned about, and that was the infiltration of the Marxist-based diversity, equity, inclusion into our service academies. So I ran along with 4 other members for 5 open seats. 16 people ran in total, and all 5 of us were elected. So I think that gives us somewhat of a picture of where the graduate community is in trying to get transparency. Sure. So when it came time to, in the, shall I say, assassination of an Air Force Academy Board of Visitors member. Now, for your audience, the Board of Visitors is like a board of trustees of a college.
Right, and Charlie Kirk, so he's not somehow disassociated with the Air Force Academy. He was on this Board of Visitors and was a presidential appointee to that board.
Very true. And I think the reason the president appointed him was pretty obvious. He gravitates to the college campus age people. And what a lot of people don't know is the week after he was assassinated, had he not been assassinated, he was coming back to interface with cadets and to foster what they were telling about needed to be done in ridding our academy of this Marxist-based invasion that certainly exists.
That's right. He was supposed to be in Colorado the day after the assassination, and then he had agreed with my wife to be the keynote speaker at National Day of Prayer in Armenia coming up in November. So he had a lot of deep Colorado connections, and certainly and we'll talk about this a bit more later, but He's the first person on the board of visitors who ever really made news, in recent years. He's the only one who was actually a mover and shaker that I can remember, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Keep going with where you were.
Okay, so as an AOG member, I ran on a platform of giving grads a voice, more transparency. And so a number of grads commented me after our Board of Visitor member, Charlie Kirk, was assassinated, basically in the line of duty, I think. He was certainly fostering that professional dialogue that our founding fathers wanted us to have. Hey, he killed under a tent, shot under a tent that said, prove me wrong, let's discuss. And so the motions that came to me were give Charlie an honorary, make Charlie an honorary grad. I've socialized that, didn't meet anybody that wasn't in favor of that. Give Charlie an honorary degree. And this one, I kind of kidded our West Point colleagues this morning. I was on a podcast with them. It was called the MacArthur Society, a group out of West Point. And I said, I like that one because you guys turned them down for admissions at West Point. And here if we gave them a degree, it's kind of a, inter-service rivalry kind of thing. And the third one was just find a way to honor Charlie Kirk. So those three motions I pushed forward. What I don't think anyone anticipated, as a part of our Give Grads a Voice, one of the initiatives that we've been successful in implementing within the EOG board is the first 30 minutes is an open mic. So grads can come into the boardroom and say what they want to say. A number of grads came in and basically demeaned Charlie Kirk in a very unfriendly, very demeaning way, really. But the night before, I was having dinner right down the street here at La Fiesta with a number of other board members, and all of a sudden our phones start lighting up. And there was just a lot of hate email coming in from, how could you politicize our academy by suggesting that Charlie Kirk be honored in some way? And, it became pretty clear who those groups were. And so, I just mostly deleted the emails. I mean, we're going to give them a voice. The Articles of Incorporation of our Association of Graduates called to promote a professional dialogue and foster communications, foster camaraderie, and foster fellowship. You don't accomplish those goals by papering over a discussion or a controversial topic. I mean, if there was a man of law who, in my opinion, I would rather have as a fellow graduate of the Air Force Academy, I don't know who that would be. I mean, Charlie embodied every single thing that we want an Air Force Academy to graduate from.
Not everyone is educated in the traditional manner, such as getting into a prestigious institution like the Air Force Academy or any other college or university in this country. That's one way to educate, but Charlie Kirk read over 100 books a year. He was a very well-educated man, just didn't do it through the traditional channels. And so I would think that, people in academia could understand that and respect that and be okay with giving him some sort of an honorary degree for his self-education.
You would like to think so, but there's elements in our society that don't want it. Now, I honestly believe that's not a majority of cadets, or graduates rather. I think that's, the noisy ones that spoke up and who are activated to oppose that.
Who organized the opposition to this? Do you know?
I have some suspicions. Rather not get into names, and nor do I really wish to name the groups, because if you name the groups, you only, inflame that debate. I'd rather sit down and have a honest dialogue with someone. Why do you really feel that way? I mean, really? I mean, you think Charlie Kirk was a racist? You know why you think Charlie Kirk was a racist? And this is something that I went into detail with this past week with KOAA, our local television channel. Is I think there's three reasons why people are activated against Charlie Kirk. Number one, he was a full-throated supporter of the President of the United States. I mean, it's an extension of Trump derangement syndrome. But I was talking with a black friend of mine the very next day when that obvious one came to me. And he's running for governor in Minnesota, by the way. And I asked him, Kendall, why do you think that's the case? Why are people so, organized against Charlie? And his answer was, pretty easy for me to see that one. They haven't really had or digested what DEI was all about. They haven't understood, they don't understand the Marxist roots, the intent to divide, and it's working. As we can see, it worked across our nation. We're now at odds more than, we before these concepts and this ideology were introduced. So Charlie was pro-merit, not picking people because of the amount of melanin in their skin.
Exactly. And when people try to portray him as racist, any one of the clips that they show is so ridiculously out of context that if you see the full context, you realize how dishonest this is, because he's anything but a racist. He's the farthest thing from a racist. For instance, they like to isolate the comment about, should I be afraid if the pilot on my airplane is black? That was in the context of, if we're hiring people on a basis of their skin color as opposed to their intellect and their character and their ability, that raises the question, is this person really qualified? Charlie's point was, anyone can become a qualified airline pilot regardless of regardless of their skin tone. And that's the opposite of racism. But they will isolate that and say, oh, I'm afraid if a black man is flying my plane. You can't get more dishonest than that.
That's spot on, Wayne. The way I like to put it in sports terms. I don't know about you, but I'm a Denver Bronco fan, and so I say, if the Denver Broncos were to come out and say, okay, we want to hire based on the percentage of X, Y, Z in our population, and they would say, we're going to recruit, we want 84% white males, I'd be very upset because the quality of the team would go down. And so, as my black friend from Minnesota said, people don't understand that the numbers just aren't there. And when you combine having goals or quotas to recruit to a certain percentage and the numbers aren't there, you have to lower standards. So I've been in a discussion with a black pilot, a former fellow wing commander at Charleston Air Force Base like I am, who just saw what Charlie said was so racist and discriminatory. I go, no, that's what, unfortunately, DEI has made us think. I said, look, let me put it this way. You have a daughter. If your daughter is going to have an operation, do you want her to be operated on a surgeon who, quote, just meets standards? Or do you want her to be operated on by somebody who has made that because of their qualifications? You want the best surgeon.
Right.
So, I mean, to me, so that's
I would want Dr. Ben Carson, when he was practicing, and he's black, and it had absolutely nothing to do with him being the only probably person in the world who could have separated those twins who were connected at the head. You ever hear a story that makes you sit up and think, if he can do it, why not me? Scott Riopel built his life from scratch. No handouts, just hustle. Now he runs Interstate Roofing, part of the One Solutions family, and he's showing others the path out. If you're ready to change your life, follow him on Facebook and Instagram at big_Scott303. This isn't just roofing, this is a way up. At Integrity Bank and Trust, integrity is more than a name. It's a way of doing business. My family does business there, and I can tell you they are the friendliest and easiest we have worked with over decades as entrepreneurs and small business owners. Integrity's expert and friendly personnel offer home loans, treasury management, personal banking, and other services for every stage of life. Integrity puts customers first, living up to its name.
Yeah, I can bring that home to myself personally. I had a back operation 7 years ago, and I waited in pain for an extra 2 weeks so I could have an Academy grad who happened to be black and a doctor, but he had extensive experience in Afghanistan and Iraq, and he was the head of surgery at Wolford Hall. I wanted him to be operating on me, so I waited for an extra 2 weeks so he could do the operation.
Well, when the left pushes this DEI agenda, this is it's a twist on Marxism, which was supposed to divide us by economic status.
Mm.
That doesn't really work in the United States, so we try to divide people based on race
Mm.
and ethnicity, whatever group that we want to lump someone into. President Joe Biden, maybe Kamala Harris was the best possible pick for vice president. We'll never know, regardless of where one stands on her and how she performed. We'll never know because long before he picked her, he said, I'm going to pick a black female
Mhm.
as my vice presidential pick. When you do that, now everybody has to look at Kamala and say, well, part of the selection process was that she was a black female. Instead of assuming that she was the absolute best person for the role. So that's where the racism really lies, is in the DEI agenda itself.
Very true. Spot on, Wayne. So Trump derangement syndrome, haven't really wrapped their brain cells around DEI. And a third one, this one came from a former chief of Air Force chaplains. I called him up a week ago Sunday, and I'm chatting with him about this and, these reasons. He said, well, Rod, I'll give you another one. This one is so clear to me. And I said, what's that, chaplain? He said, well, there's elements in our society that want to remove God and religion from our day-to-day lives. And Charlie was bringing it back in a big way on college campuses. So there's three good reasons, I think, why some elements in our society activated against honoring a person that stood for, what did he say? Unfortunately, ironically, a couple months before he was assassinated, what do you want to be remembered by? The courage of my faith. So a man who is deeply ingrained in his faith, a man who stood for freedom of speech and let's have a dialogue, a man who exuded patriotism. And we don't want him to have an award when he was assassinated as a sitting member of our Board of Visitors. It's hard to believe.
For speaking his mind and standing for his values. The degree was not conferred. The honorary degree was not conferred. But where do we stand with it? Are you going to continue trying?
Well, so I felt a little bit of pressure, as did I think some other. We have a black new member of the board of directors who was getting the hate email like that I was getting. And so, there was a lot of email coming in. Yeah. So he came up with the idea of, whoa, look, they've activated this group. And then he shows me, oh, look, they've activated this Facebook group. And then we saw letters from other organizations going out. And he says, let's send out an email to the people who voted for us. We have their email addresses. And we sent out an email, and within 24 hours, we had over 400 responses, 3-1. And I would have put the question a different way. I would have I didn't work or chop on what went out, but it said, what do you think of giving Charlie Kirk, making him an honorary grad? That's the highest bar because according to the bylaws, it's 80% of the boards have to vote for that. Well, there's not 80% of the board that was going to vote for that. I was going to withdraw that, as a outreach to my fellow board members. Hey, I'll take this one off the table, thinking to myself, it's not going to pass anyway. So that letter that we went out to, a number of groups within 24 hours, 400 plus responses, 3-1. Yes, make Charlie an honorary grad. If we had just asked, would you consider giving Charlie Kirk an honorary award of some kind? I bet it would have been 400 to Zippo myself, but we'll see. So I withdrew that one, but before I tell you what I did, let me tell you a little bit of the pressure that was put on. So those motions, I had 3 motions, again, honorary grad, honorary degree, and an award, number 3. And they were all at the end of the agenda. But I think these leftist activist groups got to some of the big donors to the Academy because we start getting pressure from donors to you better pull away from this, get this off the plate kind of thing is the way I was reading it. So after lunch on the day of the board meeting, I was approached by the chairman of the board and the CEO asking me if I would move up the motions. Personally, I was hoping they'd get carried over to the next meeting. Why? There's no rush. The motion to give Charlie Kirk an honorary degree is at the Secretary of Air Force's office. They hadn't decided. They don't need a motion from the AOG to make that happen if they want to. So some of these just may come apart, may come to fall out as a matter of course of action. But I said, well, you want to move them up. So I'm thinking to myself, there must be some reason why we're moving them up here. So we reconvene after lunch, and the CEO, the board chair, and 2 board members all ask me, will I withdraw all of my motions on Charlie Kirk? And so I let the discussion go for a while, listened to where people were coming down. And I said, look, I'll withdraw the first 2, thinking again for the reasons I said, that first one's not going to pass anyway. It's not going to pass 80% of that board. Number 2, Air Force can do it, honorary degree. Number 3, I cannot withdraw all 3. I mean, this is, I believe, supported by a majority of grads, and that this is to give Charlie an award of some kind, honor him in some way. So we let the discussion float for a while, and then I said, okay, look, I'll withdraw the first 2, consider them withdrawn, and I moved to amend my last motion. And my last motion in my head, I think I remember it, is the Association of Graduates staff will continue to collect input from the graduate community. In other words, do what our articles of incorporation say, foster that dialogue, foster communication, foster camaraderie by having an honorary discussion, a discussion that's full of honor and respect for the other side. And by the next meeting, they will come back and present to the board appropriate recommendations on a way to honor Charlie Kirk. One of the board members took issue with the word honor, so I said, okay, I'll change it to recognize. If as long as recognize, it could be an honor. So that passed 9-4. And so, I mean, I ended Friday being pretty happy about things. And then I don't know if George has that paper, but I got up early Saturday morning, and I see what's on the front page of the Gazette, and I go, what the heck is going on? And that paper, we're waiting for it to come up if it does. On one side of the page, above the fold in bold print, it says Air Force Academy Board withdraws votes to honor, not going to vote on honoring Charlie Kirk, basically, is the intent. It's not true. So I'm catching up with email because I'm still, here's the article. So in the article on our left, the reporter quotes an Academy grad that says Charlie's not qualified to be on the board of the visitors. But I can tell you, because I first met Charlie when I was on a cruise with my wife via Zoom in the fjords of Norway, and I was hoping that the ship would stay far enough away from the edges so we wouldn't lose a connection. And he started a signal chat. So I've known Charlie since June. And that first Zoom we met, I talked to him for probably, the Zoom was over an hour. I probably did the talking for half of that at least. And I'm sitting behind him at the Board of Visitors meeting, and he's got a signal chat opening, and he's asking questions, what about this and what about that? But this one he did on his own. He brought up to the superintendent. He says, I've been wandering around the academy, and the cadets are concerned that their spiritual center, the cadet chapel, is going to be closed for their entire time at the academy. It's going to take probably 9 years from when it only took to renovate it, when it only took 3 to begin with to build it. And so he looks at the superintendent and says, hey, General Superintendent, can we do anything to help you here? We have the builder-in-chief as our commander-in-chief. And so who do you think's behind the bold print article on the left? That was all Charlie Kirk's doing. Trump calls for probe into Academy Chapel. And, so there's...
Yeah, the one on the right.
Yeah, on the right. Yeah,
right. And so for those who don't know, the Air Force Academy Chapel, it's a major landmark in Colorado Springs. You can see it from I-25. It's a beautiful glass chapel, and it's been covered in a box square tint since 2019.
Very true.
This is when work began to renovate the chapel. It was leaking, and this started in 2018. The chapel was built for $3.65 million in 1962. If you adjust for inflation today, that would be $37.65 million. So that's a lot of money. But the renovation began with a budget of $158 million in 2019. Now here we are in 2025, and the cost has risen to $338 million, and they don't anticipate being done until 2028. That is almost a 10-year renovation of a building that took, 3 years to build? And $338 million versus, in real dollars, in adjusted dollars, $37.65 million to build it. So Charlie Kirk is the one who made an issue of this. Everyone else has just been driving by this square tint for years and accepting it, and nobody's really called into question why this is taking so long and why it's costing so much. Well, that just must be the way things go. And Charlie, that wasn't acceptable to him. He raised the issue. Now, President Donald Trump has ordered an investigation into this because something is not right when when a cost overrun is that great and the delays are that great. Something is wrong. And so hopefully that investigation will get to the bottom of it. But it was Charlie who put that all in motion. And I mean, if you started at the Academy in 2019, you were never going to see and if you started in 2024, you're not going to see the chapel your entire time at the United States Air Force Academy. And it's just a blight on the mountain right now with that square tint over it.
Yeah, I think you gave your audience a great background on that, Wayne. It is really such a shame. I mean, I know that asbestos that we didn't realize was as harmful it was in 62, 63 when the chapel was being built is a major issue for the delay. But geez, 9 to 10 years, and Charlie wasn't happy with that.
Do you have any theories as to why it's taking that long?
Well,
Is it just that there's just more money in a delay? I don't know.
If it's monetarily motivated, I don't know if it's. I mean, the only thing I hear is, of course, the asbestos piece. People have speculated that this, and I'm not saying I buy into this by any means, but people have speculated that this is just another avenue that the left has taken to keep God and religion out of the lives. Although I'm a pretty good friend with former chief of chaplains at the Air Force Academy. I don't know if you ever knew Father Bruno.
I did not.
And Father Bruno came and spent a couple of days with my wife and I back in September, and he said Mass in the Polaris Hall. And he said the crowd was about the same as he had, they used to have when he was chief of chaplains. So if it is an effort to erase God and religion, it's not working.
Good. This is a multi-denominational chapel.
It is.
But a lot of people would like to erase any type of faith, any type of religion from the academies, period.
And it's a great example, too, though, Wayne, where I think I listened to the graduate community because that was another suggestion that came in, given how fervent and devout Charlie was in his faith, to name the chapel after the Kirk Chapel. So I socialized that one with a number of fellow grads and cadets as well. That one didn't have as great of some people liked it, but the majority said, but the chapel is, as you just said, non-denominational. And
the Academy has done a lot to accommodate all sorts of different religions. I mean, there's actually a Wiccan worship site on the mountain at the Academy. So leadership over the years has done everything they can to. It's not like there's an agenda there to force one particular belief system on anyone at the Academy. Although critics will tell you otherwise, the evidence points to the fact that the Academy is a free marketplace of religious beliefs.
Very true.
And isn't that part of being in the military is having the ability to call on a higher power, whatever that higher power may be?
Boy, I sure think so. I tell the story to people who may not be all that familiar with the Pentagon. I had 2 tours there, each a year long, and the days are stressful. They're long. I mean, I would leave my house at 10 after 5, so I could be off the HOV, high occupancy vehicle lane, by 6 o'clock, because the day started at 6 o'clock in my office. Both tours I had were in operations. And they would end at, I'd get home by 7:30, and that's not 2+ hours later, that's 14 hours later. And just to reduce the stress sometimes, I would walk down the hall 2 corridors away between the Air Force section on the E-Ring and the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of Now War section. There's a beautiful, probably 10-foot painting of a Catholic family, lieutenant colonel in uniform, going to communion. And it just gave me great relief. I'd walk down there quite frequently and just look at that picture, because underneath it was an inscription from Isaiah, "Here I am, Lord." And to me, that just boosted my day. It was enough. Okay, yep, here I am, Lord. Let me go back to work now. And
Yeah.
it was just a way of relieving stress and reminding myself of why I'm here and what I'm all about at the core.
So as a member of STARS, I mean, that community works hard against the woke DEI Marxist agenda, is the way that your group describes it. What is that about? Tell us how that plays out at the academies.
Okay. Yeah. And so once again, I just wanted to underscore to your audience that my work with the AOG board is completely separate from STARS. STARS came about when someone who goes to our church, Ron Scott, alerted me to a video that the football team had put together. In fact, it was a front page article, I think, on the sports page. It might have been even on the front page of the Gazette. And the article said, Air Force football shows firm support in support of Black Lives Matter. Well, I had learned from playing golf occasionally with Ron Scott. This last I had played golf until last month, was 6 years ago, about Black Lives Matter, what it was all about. And if you watch that particular video, which I played this morning for the West Point crowd, it's our football coaches essentially chanting the slogan of Black Lives Matter 6 or 8 times in a 3-minute video.
We are the Bolt Brotherhood.
One team, one family.
We are a diverse team.
As Falcons in our team huddle, the goal is to score.
But we will serve to reach beyond the playing field.
To build communities and our country.
To support all backgrounds, black, brown, and white.
To pursue greater opportunities.
When it comes to education, justice, healthcare, and peace.
So we may all win in life.
Our mission extends beyond winning.
Our mission is to stand against racism.
To promote diversity and inclusion.
Our mission is to demonstrate
and fight for respect and human dignity. We aim to tell our country and the world that Black Lives Matter.
And to cure the disease of discrimination
and racism in our country.
Black lives have not been
and are not treated as equal in our society.
Racial profiling,
Jim Crow,
mass incarceration,
redlining,
police brutality.
From the Bolt Brotherhood, enough is enough. This is not a political choice of Marxism or capitalism.
This is the basic regard and respect for human life and dignity.
This is why Black Lives Matter.
If the intent of our country is justice and liberty for all,
we must first acknowledge that Black Lives Matter.
We must stand in unity for racism to end.
We stand in unity to be part of the solution.
It's not enough for us to be not racist.
It's time to be anti-racist.
It's time to be anti-racist.
It's time to be anti-racist.
It's time for me to recognize my bias.
It's time to use
my voice,
my talent,
my platform,
to stand against unjust police brutality
and institutional discrimination.
Take action, take responsibility, and take a stance.
Listen to understand.
Listen with an open heart.
Listen to our experiences.
And empathize with the pain that racism causes so many.
Educate yourself on the role that race plays in our history.
We will fight for fair treatment.
Justice and equality of Black Americans.
Brown Americans and all Americans.
This goes beyond the football field.
Because Black lives matter.
Because Black lives matter.
Because Black lives matter.
It's time to open our eyes.
It's time to open our eyes.
And to fight and serve for justice.
It's time to make our country and our world a better place.
It's bigger than football.
It's bigger than football.
It's bigger than football.
There's no neutral nor in between when it comes to racism.
You have to take a stance.
Because the Bolt Brotherhood believes Black lives matter.
The superintendent at the time, I knew fairly well. He had worked for me as a colonel, and I think I had a bit to say in how successful he was and why he became a general officer. And so I called him up and asked him, General, do you know what you're doing here with this video? And, well, what do you mean? I said, well, if you go to the Black Lives Matter website, you'll see that there, in fact, Dr. Scott had edited the video somewhat this morning, and it had the people who started Black Lives Matter up front talking about we're Marxists.
We actually do have an ideological frame. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
We're trained Marxists. And so I said, they're trained Marxists, first of all. Secondly, they're against capitalism. They want to overthrow capitalism. Thirdly, they're against the Western nuclear family. So why do we want to put up a video on our website, on an official Air Force Academy website, that is espousing, Marxism? And that's something that I spent 34 years in uniform trying to keep our country safe from. I've frequently talked to, I've spoken twice now, not frequently, twice with the Association of Graduates here locally. And, most of them are 60s and 70s grad. Hey, you guys, put your life on the line in Vietnam. We're all too young, thankfully, to have fought in Korea. But, we were fighting against this ideology. Now we're just letting it in the front door. And so that's how STARS got its roots, or started, Ron and I, and bringing in other grads. But it became cemented next when I saw just how deep, I guess, this rot was in our government, because our president, Ron Scott, and now chairman of the board, since I resigned from that position a couple of weeks ago, his nephew was the one that fixed Hunter Biden's laptop.
Right.
And so Ron had shared that story with me just 2 months after that video had come out.
I remember you bringing this to the attention of the Gazette and the Washington Examiner, both fantastic, generally very good publications owned by a Colorado family that just absolutely, they're in the media for all the right reasons. They care about community. They care about this state. And that'd be the Anschutz family. And so I remember your group bringing that to the attention. And so those were some of the first publications to start writing about the laptop, now known as the laptop from hell.
Yeah. Originally, it was several months after, but to break the story, because when Ron's telling me that he has a copy of Hunter Biden's laptop in August of 2020, and I looked at my watch. This is the height of COVID. We're out on a deck, socially distanced and all, and he tells me this. I go, whoa, I know who Hunter Biden is, but what's his laptop? And then he goes on to explain that, his nephew is the computer repairman. And I go, well, Ron, the election's like in 3 months. Why doesn't our American populace know that? And he starts naming people that he had tried to get it to, one of which was Cheryl Atkinson, who used to work for 60 Minutes and CBS, who was fired, I think, due in part to reporting on a flight that I was the mission commander on, and that was flying Mrs. Clinton and Chelsea into Bosnia. And Hillary, during the campaign, had embellished about those flights into Bosnia and said we were fired at and stuff. And when I first saw that, I scratched my head and thought, I'm the mission commander. I would have thought I would know.
You would know.
if we were fired upon. And she talked about plainside reception being canceled. And I'm going, is that the one that I escorted you over to? So anyway, Ron shares some of, I asked him that day, I said, not that I don't believe you, Ron, but could you just send me a thing or two off the laptop? And he sent me a letter from the vice president of Burisma, the oil company in Ukraine, to Hunter, thanking him for all the work they had done and getting this information, the meeting with his father and all. And I said, well, this is before the 51 intelligence officers called this Russian disinformation. Somebody could manufacture that one. But the other one he sent me was a series of texts between Hunter and his daughter, Naomi. And I said, there's no way that people are that good that they could make this stuff up. So there's at least some validity to it. And I think any one of those 51 intelligence officers, and I expressed my disappointment earlier today about them because I know some of them, could have done exactly the same thing I did. Hey, let me see some of this before I sign that letter that became an issue during the debate between then President Trump and then candidate Biden. So when I saw that, I go, whoa. And then with you guys and with other media outlets, we tried to get the story broken. Nobody wanted it right then and there, although, as you say,
there were a lot of legal concerns at the time.
Yep,
and it
I
was,
know.
Yeah.
But my next door neighbor was a former Fox News reporter, and I told him the story, and he said, I still have some contacts in New York. Let me pull all this together for you. And so Ron Scott, his nephew, I think my neighbor, and some of the people from Fox News in New York and the New York Post, owned by the same company, they all got together and they, I think, sent some people to Delaware to interview Ron's nephew, the computer shop repair owner, and they broke the story. And Fox covered it for that week. But then, as we were trying to get it out to what we call mainstream media, I'm not sure it's mainstream so much anymore. No one will take it. So I get frustrated. I said, well, I'm going to put my story on Facebook. So I wrote a Facebook of what I had been through. I maybe had 20 shares at most of anything I had put. I had 865 shares the first day and went viral on Twitter, according to my son, who I'm not on Twitter, or now X, but he emailed or texted my wife saying, why is Dad going viral on Twitter? And 865 shares that one day, 0 the next. 0. That doesn't happen.
No, they ratcheted it down. They shut it off.
I mean, Zuckerberg has admitted that, there are people in the FBI that were, working there in Silicon Valley. And I go, wow, our country needs help. And that laptop, when you talk to the family, they tried giving it to the FBI in August or September of 2019. The FBI said, we don't want it, lawyer up. And they finally came, due to some work that the dad did, they finally came and subpoenaed it in December 19, but they sat on exculpatory information while the president of the United States is impeached. And I just said, wow. What is happening to our republic? So that's when, and then we finally got the Black Lives Matter video off of the official website. We had tried to keep it inside the Air Force family. We had filed an IG complaint, but 3 days after President Biden was elected, we got a one-liner back from the Air Force IG that said, your IG complaint is dismissed. At the same time, we met Matthew Lohmeyer, who is now the Undersecretary of the Air Force, and we started a long alliance with him and working these issues together. And working with behind the scenes with some retired 4-stars and all, we got a Zoom with the then superintendent, who I had previously sent before he took command, 17 articles on critical race theory and Black Lives Matter. But the day he took over as superintendent, he emailed, I believe, in the message of the Black Lives Matter video. And we go, oh, okay. So that's when we filed the IG complaint, and we had the Zoom with him, and he agreed to take it off official websites. But then we find out things like the Air Force Academy library. First thing you saw when you went in the door was a diversity and inclusion reading room. So, I mean, my wife and I retired here to sponsor cadets. So I asked one of the cadets I sponsored, hey, could you go by and take some pictures of the diversity and inclusion reading room? I mean, books on transgenders, books on Marxism, books on, okay, if that's what we want our cadets to wrap their brain cells around, I'd rather see it books on the vision of our founding fathers and books on the Constitution and what our founding fathers read, for example.
Instead of all this divisive stuff.
Yep.
And let me tell you my view on Black Lives Matter. First of all, it's a great name. What a fantastic name, because of course Black Lives Matter. I think all decent people of any background agree that Black Lives Matter as much as anybody's lives matter. But during 2020, when that whole Black Lives Matter, when it became a thing, when that became a household name, and we had all of those protests, and government reports tell us that in 2020 alone, there were how many individuals killed during these I mean, I can go through the list here. James Sherlock, 22, killed in Omaha, Nebraska with confrontation with a bar owner. Barry Perkins, 29, run over by a FedEx truck in St. Louis at a Black Lives Matter protest. David McAtee, 53, barbecue restaurant owner, shot by law enforcement in Louisville. Calvin Horton, 43, shot outside a Minneapolis pawn shop. Anyway, I can go on and on. They are, let's see, I've got the names of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. About 14 Black lives that were eliminated during Black Lives Matter protests. So what this movement did was get Black people killed. And it burned down Black neighborhoods. It tormented Black neighborhoods. Now, you look at Donald Trump, who BLM, Black Lives Matter people generally try to cast as a racist, and he has gone into cities such as Washington, D.C. and Memphis. He's going to go into others with a federal crackdown on crime because the murder rates are outrageous in those cities, and 90+% of the murder victims in those cities are Black. So by reducing, and he's had a dramatic effect on murder rates in the cities where he's done this. He's saving Black lives. If Black Lives Matter, isn't that what we want to be doing, is saving Black lives? Because even in here in Colorado, where there's I guess the Black population is roughly 4%. If you look at the percentage of murder victims, it's more like 25% of them are Black, even higher in some of the cities, like Colorado Springs and Denver. So we could, if Black Lives Matter, the best thing we can do is crack down on violent crime, because they are far and away the primary victims of violent crime and murder.
Yep, wouldn't get any argument from me on that rundown at all, Wayne.
Pete Hegseth, now he's the Secretary of Defense and Secretary of War. Pardon me. Yes, the Department of War, Secretary of War. Pete Hegseth is right along with your agenda, as far as I can tell. He's really cracking down on this woke DEI Marxist agenda in the academies and in the military in general. Tell me how you feel about what he's doing.
Well, I'd like to say that I think, as I told the group this morning when I spoke with them, we've got a lot of accomplishments behind us. One that's overlooked. In fact, I made this comment to the Gazette reporter, and she corrected it in her second article. I said, people think of us as the anti-DEI people in STARS. But actually, I'd rather think of us as the pro-American, pro-helping other people out group first and foremost, because we've had two strategic goals from the beginning. And I'll answer your question on Secretary Hegseth here by answering it this way. our two strategic goals was to end DEI because, as you said, it's divisive. Our other strategic goal was overturning the vaccine mandate. Now we have both. Why? And it's kind of surprising. I mean, we debated that internally with STARS robustly for 2 months, because we're all in the military, and it's roll up or your sleeve or bend over and get your shot. You know, you have to protect the troops and the force, and you have to be there. But we were educated during those 2 months by a number of outstanding grads, both two distinguished grads from the Air Force Academy, one a 72 distinguished grad doctor who educated us on all the harmful side effects. And he said, hey, doesn't this just common sense? I mean, this only had a fraction of the testing of other vaccines. And now, you know, our government's covering up all these reports that are coming in, Israel and other countries, where, you know, it's not panning out the way. And as you probably know, your audience probably knows, the CDC had to change the definition of vaccine because the COVID vaccine didn't keep anyone from getting the disease, nor did it keep anyone from spreading it. But then we came across a 77 distinguished grad lawyer who said basically to us, here we go again. For the second time in 20 years, the government is breaking the laws of our land. And, well, get us smarter. Well, I mean, there's laws on the books for use of emergency use authorized only products, and they're playing a shell game with exactly what the FDA approvals are. And so we looked more into that. And yeah, I mean, if the product is still emergency use authorized only, which to my knowledge, every COVID vaccine, at least given to the military, has been, then you have to do two things. You have to give them informed consent. And he said there's not enough evidence yet on knowing the long-term effects on this to really give somebody good, solid, informed consent. And the second thing you have to do is they have to be able to refuse it. Well, I think your audience knows that the majority, 8,400 people, I think is about the official number of people that were eliminated from the services because they refused the vaccine. However, I learned this past month that the number who voluntarily got out and/or left and/or were forced out is closer to 95,000. That's a huge number of our military. And that comes from an Air Force Major JAG who was given the option that a lot of officers were given. And that's, I don't think they were threatened with court-martial, but I don't think the government ever would have court-martial because the court would have gotten to the truth on these matters. And, there's nobody court-martialed for refusing the vaccine. People were court-martialed for refusing to wear a mask. And you may have seen President Trump pardon that individual who was found guilty. So 95,000. Wow. I work closely with a lieutenant 2019 graduate who is leading 600 pilots who are going to get out. And the Air Force is already 2,000 pilots short. And yet this mandate not only broke the Emergency Use Authorized Only Act, it broke the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the RFRA. And which says, the government can only, minimally take steps when a person's religious freedom was at stake or felt. So, I mean, I like to think, and now our general counsel, we have a button on our website that says, if you've been discriminated against by the Religious Freedom Restoration Act or the COVID vaccine mandate or DEI, tell us. We have over 182 cases in just over a month. Imagine if that was known worldwide. So we've been working on both of those issues, DEI. We've done, and this gets to your question of Pete, we've done a pretty good job of educating the populace, of helping at least through emails and working with people who are on the transition teams, of writing the executive orders, getting the right words in there, the memorandums from the secretary. I mean, the dialogue that we've had is I think that played a role in forming and making all that happen. On the DEI front, though, that Marxist monster is probably going to pop its head back up. So what are we going to do to eradicate it? We can talk about that if you want. But then on the vaccine front, there's still a lot of people out there that are facing discharges that we've got the right orders in place. The orders, have been there since January, but the BCMR, the Board Correction of Military Records process, is so backlogged. It takes so long to right the wrongs. And so we're trying to work with Undersecretary of War's office that oversees this to let's speed up the process here. And we have suggestions on how to do that. And as importantly, we're not after heads as a number of groups are, because a lot of people, their careers were lost and they know their bosses just went along. I mean, here is an Air Force Major JAG who was kicked out because she refused the vaccine, told me she went to the head of the Air Force JAG Corps, 3-star general, and said, we're breaking the law here. And his answer was, I know we are, but the White House has spoken. So again, wow. I mean, come on, folks. We're a constitutional republic. And republic means the law. We're based on a country of laws. So to me, all this stuff kind of wraps together into this tyrannical, authoritarian approach that our government has had. So what role has Secretary Hegseth played in this? I mean, he experienced it firsthand. If you've read either of his books, and I've read them both, and his last one twice, War on Warriors. If you read War on Warriors, the entire last chapter almost the entire chapter came from STARS. Stuff that I fed him through emails and the stories and in fact, working with the Washington Examiner. You may know Hugo Gordon. Yep.
Yeah, I sure do.
I mean, he called me up one day and said, hey, we're going to flood the zone with articles this week on DEI. And Pete was a big part of, of informing him of this going on. Oh, good. I sent him 11 emails one day, and he says, General, I'm reading everything you have to say, but I don't have time to respond to them all. Keep up the good work, like that kind of stuff. So, yeah, the work that Secretary Hegseth has done in really instilling motivation and morale. I mean, just look at the recruiting numbers. People now want to serve. They're over the top.
Now, before we go, you said DEI is going to rear its ugly head again. That just takes a change of administration.
That's it.
Correct.
That's it. So that's one of the things why Secretary Hegseth has declared victory. I mean, we're 99% gone. It's 99% gone now, but it's inculcated in the minds and the heads of those who are experienced indoctrination.
It's a mind virus.
Yep. The woke. I mean, Elon Musk said a great woke mind virus, and it starts in the K through 12. So how do we get? That's beyond our mission.
It's too bad we don't have a vaccine for that.
Amen.
Did you watch the speech by Erica Kirk?
I did, and once again, I think for the third time, I was blown away.
What'd you take away from that?
I mean, just so many good quotes. I tried finding a transcript, and my wife, being the sweetheart that she is, stayed up and watched it a second time and took notes for me. And I mean, just so many good quotes. Either you sit on the sideline. I mean, I don't know what else can wake us up. I really can't know what else, will get you involved. I mean, that was a great quote. You can't call out corruption if you're still chained to comfort. I mean, that's so true. So a lot of times when people ask us, well, what can I do as a person? How can I get involved? And if you go to the STARS website, that's STARS with 2 R's, .us, we have a citizen action plan that you'll find on there. But kind of a push I made with everybody today in an earlier podcast was everybody, as Erica said so beautifully last night, can find your voice, earn your own voice. Yeah, there's some shadows there, but I love the way she put this too. The presence of a shadow is proof that there is light. I mean, that's inspiration. So I just encourage everybody to have your elevator speech. I mean, I'm riding up chairlifts and I'll just start talking different things. And if I have an opportunity, people will look at me a number of times and say, man, I never thought about it that way. Everybody can do that. And Mark Levin, in his book, American Marxism, talks about, we're going to win this battle the same way we won the revolution. Pub to pub, school to school, person to person. Amen.
All right. Well, General, thank you so much for joining us. It is an honor to have such a highly decorated military veteran on our show. Please come back anytime. You're always welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Wayne, for having me, and good luck on this podcast. We were talking a little bit before in the green room, so to speak, about moral courage, and you certainly have that. So
well, thank you,
luck.
sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.